Welcome back to the Paranormal Review, and today we're going to have episode number 3, and this is actually going to be all about if Bigfoot really does exist. Now, let me just be honest with you guys. I believe in Bigfoot, okay? I believe that he's real. I think that he exists. I think that he's real. But I don't think there's any evidence to support that claim. There's no bodies, there's no DNA, there's no hair samples, there's no bodies, there's no footprints that we know are for sure real footprints because we've never seen the body and we've never actually measured a real Bigfoot's footprint and been able to cast it and say that's for sure a Bigfoot footprint. Okay? We really have no idea how Bigfoots walk. We have no idea what Bigfoots look like. We have nothing. All we have is circumstantial evidence that says that Bigfoot is real. Meaning we have thousands, and this is why I myself do believe in Bigfoot, even though there's no actual evidence. We have plenty of circumstantial evidence. Okay, we've talked about this before. That I think it was up until 1995, 75% or 70% of murder convictions were circumstantial evidence that was used in that case to prove someone was guilty. Meaning there wasn't a murder weapon, there wasn't DNA. DNA was still fairly young in those days. Meaning there was just enough circumstantial evidence, meaning the circumstances revolving around that person's murder led to that being the case, that person was guilty. Meaning, let's just say Joe murdered his friend and there was no murder weapon, there was no evidence that Joe was even at the house that day maybe, but let's just say that neighbors in the neighborhood saw that person walking around the house, but there was no evidence saying that they were actually in the house, but the neighbors saw them in the area. The coworkers at work testified that Joe was angry with his friend and was talking about how angry and how mad he was at his friend that he could kill his friend. Let's just say that he had bought a knife earlier in that month. Even though they could never find that knife, then there was a similar knife bought earlier in the month. See, there's no actual evidence that he actually did it, but there's many different things that circumstantially can be said that probably he did it. There's no evidence he did it, but if you look at what he told his coworkers, he was in the area, he had bought a similar knife that he used to kill that person earlier in the month. That's all circumstantial evidence saying that that person did in fact commit that crime, even though there's no actual solid evidence. Okay? I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. Now let's look at Bigfoot. There's no evidence. The Bigfoot that we know is all circumstantial. It's all eyewitness testimonies of I saw a Bigfoot or I saw a video of a Bigfoot. Here's the thing people get confused about. Videos are not evidence of Bigfoot. Okay? Because videos cannot be proven unless there's a body or actual proof that it's a Bigfoot. It's just not going to happen until there's no evidence to support it, okay? So what I mean by circumstantial evidence, again, is there's just so many things. There's Native American testimonies written down for centuries talking about Native Americans knowing about Sasquatches or Bigfoots, okay? Then you have hundreds of eyewitness testimonies of people saying that they have seen Bigfoot. Then you do have videos, but that's not evidence. You have a lot of video sightings, which can be circumstantial because they could be fake, they could be real. But there's just so many people who have talked about their sightings, talked about their experiences, that if you have 12 people, for example, saying that Joe killed his neighbor, while it might not be for sure true, it's highly likely that he did it because you have people saying, yeah, he was talking about it. Da, da, da. I saw Joe at his house earlier. Blah blah blah. Whatever. You have hundreds of people saying that they have seen Sasquatches or Bigfoots coming together and collaborating that evidence. So to me, that is enough for me to say Bigfoot probably does exist. Otherwise, so many people wouldn't be coming out in support of and with such similar stories about Bigfoot. Now, it is true that you might hear something about Bigfoot and then you see something in the forest and you use that thing that you've heard about in the past. Like, Bigfoot swinging the arms this way. I saw a creature that swing the arms that way kind of a little bit. I don't know if it really is a Bigfoot, but it is I'm going to say it's a Bigfoot, and okay, I saw a Bigfoot. It swung his arms like that, just like that other guy. So you collaborate in your mind and you confuse your story with that other person's story, and pretty soon they're all combined because you have this conception of what a Bigfoot's supposed to do. And so maybe in that way your story could match other people's stories quite closely and you think that you've seen a Bigfoot. Who knows? But I just think there's so many different sightings that it is possible. Okay. Now let's get into a different aspect. So we know there's not really any evidence, but is it likely that a Bigfoot exists? People all the time say, well, there'd be a body. We would have found evidence by now. No, you gotta remember that having no evidence does not prove something to be fake or not true. Okay? For example, there's thousands of species found every year in the oceans and in different rainforests around the world of different creatures that we have never known about. And, I want to ask you, in a lot of my videos in the comment section, a lot of you guys will say, well, there hasn't been a body found yet. I would have found a body by now if their Bigfoot was real. Okay, I want to ask you a question. And think about this seriously, guys. Do you believe in bears? Do you believe that bears exist? Well, of course bears exist. We've seen them in the zoo. No, but if you had never seen one in the zoo and you'd never seen one on TV, and someone told you that bears exist, would you believe a bear exists? Well, of course, there's dead carcasses and bones found in the forest. Well, I want to ask you guys, have you ever, in your time hiking, if you're an outdoors person, have you ever come across a dead bear body or a carcass or a bones in the forest? Okay? And I'm asking not the hunters who have hunted bears before, okay? I'm asking you, you're hiking in the forest and you come across a dead bear or a bear body or bones. I'm listening. I'm waiting. Okay, I'll be honest. I have come across one dead bear, but that bear was an illegally hunted bear that had been shot on some property and was stuck in a plastic case. It was really disgusting and sad and super horrible that was done. And that was preserved by that plastic bucket that the rest of the body of the bear was stuck in. Okay, and that was to me was really upsetting. But it's the only time hiking in my entire life that I've come across a dead bear. And I want to ask you, all those people who say that there's no such thing as Bigfoot unless you can find a body, you, using that same criteria, would have to disbelieve that bears exist. Solely on the fact that you've never seen a bear's carcass in the forest or bones. And maybe you have. It does happen. Maybe it does happen. Okay, but I haven't, and no one that I've known has ever come across a dead bear bones in the middle of the forest while hiking. Okay? So we also need to look at what, maybe Bigfoots are more like humans. Maybe they bury their dead. Maybe they're more, maybe they don't. Maybe they just decay just like bears and we don't see them for the same reason we don't see bear bones in the forest. They decay, their animals eat the carcasses and dispose of the bodies that way. Or maybe they get buried, who knows? Maybe Bigfoots, carry them off into the forest. There's many different things that could be done with their bodies that we don't know about because we've never observed it before and we don't know. So just solely for the fact of don't have a Bigfoot body does not prove that Bigfoots don't exist. Otherwise, we could prove that bears don't exist because I haven't seen a Bigfoot bear. I mean, the body of a bear in the forest either. Okay? So for me, those two things, many different species being discovered every single year. I think it was the panda or something that people had heard about but had never really, from outside of Australia or pandas are in China. I can't remember if it was the panda or the koala. Anyways, it was either one of those two. It wasn't really believed in before until they were specifically observed. But up until that point, they were real, but the people wanted evidence, and there wasn't evidence yet of their existence. Again, that happens with many different species. People don't believe that they exist, and then they find them that they do exist. Or, for example, there's extinct species. I think there was some beetle or some kind of a frog recently that just came out that it's not, or a bird. I think it was a bird that wasn't extinct anymore. Well, we had every reason to believe that thing didn't exist because there wasn't any proof of it, but yet it did exist. It was just very rare and elusive to most, humans who lived in an area which most humans didn't really inhabit and didn't really see or explore that much. Anyways, same with Bigfoot. Maybe Bigfoot stay away from humans more than, maybe they're smarter. They have different habits that have protected them through all of these years. And it is possible that somewhere in the forest there's a Bigfoot. I think for those two reasons that it's very likely that Bigfoots do exist. They're just very elusive, and they have different habits than we have, and we won't really know about a Bigfoot if they do exist until we actually have one captured or are able to observe in captivity those behaviors and make sure that it really is a Bigfoot and not just a person with mange. Anyways, guys, until next time, please subscribe. If you have any footage you want me to review, please send it to me and let me know what you think about this commentary in the comment section. I also want to just briefly address really quick, because it's kind of on this topic, that when you're looking at Bigfoot footage, you should not base that footage on anything else other than the person's reactions and that specific Bigfoot creature. You shouldn't be like, well, it doesn't look like Patterson Gimlin, so it must be fake, or it doesn't look like the Provo Canyon Bigfoot footage, so it must be fake, or it doesn't look like the swamp creature footage, so it must be fake. Solely look at it objectively, because we don't know if Patterson Gimlin or Provo Canyon or any swamp creature footage is actually real. We need to be objective and try to look at each video as if it is the first footage of Bigfoot ever and say, is that real or not? You can't say, well, it swings its arms differently than Patterson Gimlin, so it's fake. Maybe Patterson Gimlin's footage is fake and it should be looking more like the one you're reviewing, but because of your preconception about the Patterson Gimlin being the best footage ever, you're going to dismiss the new one when it should be the other one you're dismissing instead, maybe. Or maybe Bigfoots just are like humans and they have different patterns of swinging their arms. Maybe, go out to the park and watch people. Look at 10 people, watch how they walk, and observe how different people act. Maybe Bigfoots do the same. Anyways, for more on that topic, please watch episode 2. It's pretty interesting. It's another episode right before this one. So, anyway, guys, until next time, please subscribe and send me any footage you want me to review. Talk to you guys later. Bye.